Grace and peace, family. It's me, Justin Mitchell, Motivation Destination. I'm just going to hop in here real quick and get real on the level with you all right now. Look, we are in a state of conscious awareness being deepened and developed. And what I mean by that, I'm going to say it by saying this. When I was in 7th grade, I experienced something by the hands of two others that no young man, young woman, anybody should ever have to go through, right? And I'll say this: a lot of our women who are perpetrated against in very unfortunate ways. I'll put that in there as a way of qualifying my statement without getting into too much detail at this point in time. But I'm saying that to say it was that moment, hindsight being 2020. It was that moment now, me looking back, it made me consciously aware of things and of how to relate and feel empathetically, right? Compassionately, made me feel towards lots of people. Because as I got older and I start seeing how many people are perpetrated against in this particular way, it pulled my heartstrings. And as I've gotten older and older and started to experience other things that raised my consciousness, like being in jail, being homeless, hiding under people's porches, hiding from the police, or hiding under people's porches, hiding from the gangsters who were trying to shoot me. All these things developed my consciousness to the point where it made me want to help, love, reach out to the masses, as many people as I possibly could. And then when I took an introduction to sociology at Housatonic Community College in Bridgeport, Connecticut, our professor said at the time, for those of you who are thinking about being social workers, let me prepare you now for the types of people who you may encounter. And she ran off a list of all different kinds of people. And at that time, I was 24 years old. I said, nah, I can't. I don't want to deal with this. Because I didn't want to have to face those kinds of people, right? Because it reminded me of the types of people who perpetrated against me as a kid. So I couldn't handle that at the time. But something else that we learned in that class, one of the things I'll never forget, we had talked about one way to really be able to help masses of people, no matter what their background is, their cultural upbringing or whatever. One of the ways to reach masses of people is to study three specific areas of those people. One was their spiritual practice, the types of food they eat, right? And their culture in general. So those three areas: culture, food, spiritual practices. I gravitated towards the spiritual practices. And that's directly related to my father and his experience in Vietnam, and the things that he shared with us as kids that always sparked my curiosity about God and spirituality. So I studied world religions. And in studying world religions, I started grabbing towards specific things that I saw in each one that were common in all the others, such as love, such as faith, hope. These things popped up in every single quote unquote spiritual tradition that I followed. And I'm saying all that to say, the way I started this talk is that I believe we are currently in a state where we are being raised, we are being pushed and ushered into a deeper place of consciousness, conscious awareness, not just with ourselves, right? See, we did that already when the age of Aquarius came in. We individually started to enhance our individual consciousness when the new millennium kicked in, right? When we switched over to 300, the 3,600 years had passed, and now we're ushered into the age of Aquarian, right? The age of Aquarius. But now our collective consciousness, we're off the individual level now to the collective consciousness because of this pandemic, because of this COVID-19, because of this 5G radiation wave, whatever you want to label it, call it, whichever way you want to point it to. Let's not get sidetracked from what's happening with the human people right now. We are uniting, people. We are coming together. Our collective state of consciousness is rising. And this is so powerful. The things that we can now do to save this planet, to save this earth, to save more and more people, what we can do now is absolutely powerful. So what I'm saying, the reason why I'm saying all this is that I'm imploring you. And I started out by talking about how I was raised to levels of consciousness. I'm imploring you, for those who don't have a spiritual practice, or for those who don't, I don't want to say don't believe, because I didn't believe in God the way I was taught it either, right? I didn't believe in God that way either. I believe in spirituality. And I don't always tell everybody this because it hasn't been for everybody until now, right? God to me is it. God is energy. And that energy manifests itself in a multitude of ways, on multiple frequencies, multiple vibrations, and in multiple dimensions. That's big. The multiple dimensions. See, we see in 3D, but there's 4D, there's 5D, there's 6D, there's 7D, there's 9D. It works in multiple dimensions. And the way I've learned to get in touch with that dimension is through meditation, first and foremost, through prayer, through nature, through studying. And listen, I love to read a good novel because we have to have that balance. But I've also learned to be very mindful of what I consume through my eyes, through my ears, through my nose, and through my mouth. I'm very mindful of what I consume. And now I'm learning how to be mindful of what I consume through my pores, right? We're talking about what's going on in the world today, right? So we're being fully engaged right now with our whole mind, body, and spirit. And for those who aren't in a believer's type of place, you don't want to believe in it and spirituality, I implore you, at least start meditating. At least start going out in nature more. At least maybe drop down and say a quick prayer. Whichever way you want to do it. You know, I had a mentor who told me, because I didn't believe at the time, he said, if you don't believe, use my name and say, listen, God, I don't believe, but so-and-so said, and that's how I would say my prayers. So-and-so said that you could do this. And I kept doing that until I started believing. And one of the biggest things that helped me believe is I just started being more aware of what was going on around me externally and just watching. I'll end with this. One of the biggest things that helped me really start believing was when I was in jail. I was in solitary confinement because I was in a fight. Well, I didn't fight. I weaved and got out the way, and the brother missed. But because it was considered a fight, they put me in solitary for 3 days. And I know our issues with solitary confinement, right? So I know that. And I know what goes on with a lot of brothers and sisters who are in that predicament. But to God be the glory, my solitary confinement was a blessing. First thing, they brought in another brother who had gotten beat up pretty bad. So bad to the point that he couldn't feed himself. He couldn't change himself. Me being his cellie, who do you think fed him? Who do you think changed him? I did. And it was a blessing. It was weird. It was strange. But it was a blessing to be able to do that for that brother. And then when he finally left a couple days, on my last day, I slept. And before I went to bed, I looked out my little cell window. And I had saw in the ground, the daffodils were closed. I saw that at night. And then when I woke up in the morning, I looked out the window again, and the daffodils were open. And right there, I said, yeah, it is always working. It is always at work. It is always at work. God is always at work. Allah is always at work, right? Whatever you want to call it, describe it, G/D, right? It is always working. And even in this moment right now, it is working. Let's tap in, right? Let's log on, right, to the spiritual thing that's happening right now. I went on a little bit longer than I usually do, but I just wanted to just say, man, like I've been saying, it is working. And for those who are called, right, those who are called, if they would just humble themselves and pray, if they will humble themselves and pray, then will I hear from heaven, and then I will heal the land. So listen, for those who don't humble themselves and pray, we got you covered. We're gonna humble ourselves, and we're gonna continue praying, and the land is gonna be healed. So either way, it's a win-win. But I implore you, because you got some loved ones, right? You got some family, you got some friends, you got a part of you that knows, right? Send up a prayer. Do a little meditation. Do a gratitude list. Give some thanks. That's what this really is. It's about just getting out of ourselves just a little bit more and being grateful, being humble, being a little more loving, being a little more kind to oneself, and then extending that to others. We're in this together. We're never alone. Peace and blessings. Continue to love yourself. I'm Justin Mitchell, Motivation Destination. I am the destination to your motivation.